welcome to the second in our series on the easy yoke. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, then may I suggest you look at that first before looking at this video. Now in part 1, we looked at Matthew 11 verse 28 in the Amplified version, and this time we'll see what it says in the Message, which as you know is a paraphrase. And there Jesus says, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. And I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace." What a great phrase. And Jesus goes on to say, "I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." Wow, what a great paraphrase that is. Well, before we go any further, we have to remind ourselves that an easy yoke does not mean a life without tough challenges or even hard work. The ox that ploughs the field with an easy yoke is certainly going to break into a sweat, especially in areas where there's a steep incline or the land is strewn with rocks and other obstacles. God never promises the job will be easy, but rather that the yoke will be easy. There are many places around the world where Christians are persecuted, imprisoned, and even martyred for their faith. It's a life more demanding than most of us are ever likely to encounter. But though the task is hard, the yoke can still be light. When Adoniram Judson went as a missionary to Burma, he saw very little results to begin with, but a great deal of persecution. On one occasion, while undergoing torture, his persecutors mocked him with the words, "What now of your vision to convert Burma?" His response astounded them as he replied, "My future is as bright as the promises of God." See, easy yoke, very hard task. To really understand the sense of an easy yoke, we have to travel back in time a couple of thousand years to the farming culture of Bible days. Oxen by nature are thick-skinned, so inside the yoke were placed studs that in normal circumstances created no difficulty for the ox whatsoever. There was, however, an exception to this. Oxen are stubborn, and there were occasions when the ox driver wanted the ox to go in one direction while the ox decided to go in the other. At this point, the ox would dig in its heels and set its muscular frame against the will of its master. As it did, the yoke twisted at an angle on its neck, and the studs, which could not normally be felt, now dug painfully into his flesh. In the two accounts of Paul's conversion, Acts 9 and Acts 26 in the AV, the challenge of Jesus to the then Saul of Tarsus is, "Saul, why are you trying to kick against the pricks?" In the New King James Version it says, "kick against the goads." In other words, why are you digging in your heels and trying to go in the opposite direction to my will and hurting yourself in the process? Disobedience in Christian leadership is the place where an easy yoke becomes a painful exercise. Jonah knew that to his cost. Hundreds of years ago, Thomas à Kempis defined obedience, what we might call a well-fitting yoke, in this way: "As thou wilt, what thou wilt, when thou wilt." Those who wear an uncomfortable yoke due to disobedience tend to hide their pain in a variety of places. Sometimes it's activity, filling the diary with anything to anesthetize themselves against the one thing that God is really calling them to do. On other occasions it's self-pity. If only I was younger, older, or in a different church, or even in a different marriage. Further ineffectual hiding places are criticism, which as we know is the pointing of the finger away from ourselves to distract from the painful inconsistencies inside our own lives. Grumbling and cynicism serve the same purpose. One of the most unstressing things I've ever learned was that at best we're all under shepherds. Only Jesus is the true shepherd of the sheep. Yonggi Cho, who for many years was the pastor of the world's largest church, relates a powerful story. He recounted how when he was very small, he watched as his father pushed a huge wheelbarrow full of rocks across their courtyard. Running to his father's side, he said, "Daddy, Daddy, let me help." In response, his father asked him to put his hand on his own muscular hands as they walked together to where the stones were to be tipped. That evening, when they were having their meal, Cho's mother asked her son what he'd been doing during the day. "Oh," said Cho, "I've been helping Daddy to move his rocks." His parents exchanged a quiet smile. The Bible says that you and I have the privilege of being co-workers with Christ. but it perhaps only works best when we allow our Father to take the strain. Well, that's all for now. The next part of our series will be about how to protect ourselves from the risk of an uncomfortable yoke. So until then, enjoy your leadership and don't forget, keep the caffeine flowing.